Okay, so we're learning the Rebbe's talk on Tazria Metzorah, which is this week's two parshas. Gimel, the third of the year is Tafshin Nun Aleph. Okay, so the Rebbe says like this. Excuse me. One of the unique things about this week, Erev Shabbos, that this year, the Erev Shabbos is, as it's brought down, that whoever toils before Shabbos eats on Shabbos, meaning to say that there's a direct connection between our ability to do Shabbos with so to say. Hold on a second. Why isn't this going on? I don't know what's happening. Either way. So whoever has the ability to eat on Erev Shabbos will eat on Shabbos. So the connection of Erev Shabbos makes it possible for Shabbos to happen. Is Beis Iyar, that the holiday of Beis Iyar, which is the Rebbe Marash's birthday, is on Friday, or this year was Thursday. Sorry, it was Wednesday, which is Yom Haledah Shel Adam Maharash, which is the birthday of the Rebbe Maharash, which is the fourth Rebbe Chabad. Asher b'shana zu maschila shnas haknaz. This year starts the year of Zaken, which is 257 lahaledase. So in the year 1991, the Rebbe Maharash, had he been alive, would have been 157. Beis Iyar, because he was born on the second of Iyar, Taf Kuf Tzadik Dalid, and till the year Beis Iyar Tafshin Nun. Sorry, we're learning the Farbrengen of Tafshin Nun. V'chein harizeh misuga lahisif mikan alaba b'limud tayrase v'kim hayraisav. So it's a good time to take on resolutions, to continue in his learnings and his guidance. Asher hayroinu, that he taught us, midracha, from his ways, Hashan Ariel, v'nelcha, Aaron, v'archaisav, to walk in his ways, umaschil mahayram ha'ikris. And what is one of the main lessons of the Rebbe Maharash, with his famous saying that we spoke about in this week's Parsha class, this is a famous idea, that the Rebbe Maharash, again, the Rebbe Maharash was the fourth Rebbe Chabad, the grandson of the Tzemach Tzedek, the great-great-grandson of the Alter Rebbe. He lived a short life. He's the youngest of the sons of the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe Chabad, and he had a saying, and his saying was Lchatchila Ariber, and we're going to learn what this means. Lchatchila Ariber means to initially jump over it. At the get-go, whenever you have a problem, just jump over the problem. That should always be your approach to an issue in life. Whenever you have an issue, just jump over it. That was his saying, and the Rebbe is going to analyze it in a second. This was the attitude and the way of the Rebbe Maharash, Abal Shemske Hanhoga, which is a way that someone who went in the path of the Baal Shem Tov would be. And so much so that his approach was this idea of jumping over, so that he was known as the Lchatchila Ariber, the path of the Lchatchila Ariber. So just in short, I'm not sure if the Rebbe is going to go into explain it. The Rebbe Maharash said like this, that the world says that if you have an obstacle in front of you, you go under it, you go to the side of it, because it's an obstacle in front of you. And only if you can't go around it or under it, so you have no choice, you have to go over it. The Rebbe Maharash says, I say, Lechatchila, at the get-go, jump over it. The first approach to any issue should just be as a way to spring over it. And that's, the Rebbe says, that's a Baal Shem Tov attitude, which is just to always just be above everything. Now, the Rebbe is going to explain it in the talk. To first understand, what does it mean, Lchatchila Ariber? Again, Lchatchila means initially, Ariber means to go over. So I say initially go over instead of trying to go around or underneath. The Rebbe Maharash, the Rebbe says, what the Rebbe Maharash is saying is that your first approach is always going over. Even though Torah, it's not that the Torah is dictating that the only approach is to jump over. The Torah says there's two ways to deal with the problem. The way that is the orderly way. And the way of jumping. Ariber means to jump. To go above the norm, the regular way. The logic would say maybe, and this is maybe one path, that first you try to go in an orderly way, right? You see an obstacle, go around it. And then only afterwards can you elevate to the level of just jumping over. Nevertheless, even though that may be the path that most would take or some would take, the Rebbe Marash came in 140 something years ago. 190 something years ago, and he said that the way has to be Bal Yom HaLedus to Beis Iyar, the one who celebrates his birthday on the 2nd of Iyar, Sheish Lahaschil Miyad Ba'ofen Dariber. Your approach to every situation has to be jumping over. So that's one idea. Beis, the second idea is, he says, Kiven Shanhagid Ariber Hi Lechatchila, because the idea of jumping over has to be Lechatchila, your initial attitude. So the Rebbe says like this. What the Rebbe is saying is that because that's your initial approach, it doesn't just affect your approach, it also affects how you go over something. If you're only going over something after you've tried to go around and underneath, you're not going over with the same oomph and energy than when you go over with the initial approach. So it also dictates not the order of how you do it, but even how you jump over in the first place. Even if you're jumping over, and that's your initial approach, you have to be with the mindset. That's just the beginning. I'm just starting to jump over. And from there, I'm going to go do much more greater things. It means, for instance, if a person has a path to go and you have a lot of energy, so you're spending energy going around to the side, underneath, and then you finally reach to getting over. So, but if you're jumping over initially, so then that's just your first step. It means afterwards you're going to do much greater things. And afterwards, after you just initially jump over, this is the Rebbe's attitude. Keep on going, building on that. The jumping over is just the initial step. In the jumping over. The Gabi Ariber so that the jumping over in your next step is even higher than the jumping over in your first step. The Rebbe says to explain this. This unique approach that the Rebbe Marash had in life of Lchatchila Ariber, that every single situation you face, you're just jumping over. And that's your first step. The Yom HaLedus B'Chol that his birthday was in the beginning of Iyar. Again, the Rebbe Marash celebrates his birthday in the 2nd of Iyar, which is also the Sphira of Tiferes of Tiferes. The Rebbe says like this: in Yom Yuchad Shechodesh Iyar, what's so unique about Iyar, which is the month we entered this week? Shekol Hayamim Shbay, all the days of Iyar, Kol Echad V'Echadem Kasher Mitzvah Achas Michedas. Each one has a unique mitzvah that only the month of Iyar has every single day of the month, which is the mitzvah of Sfiras Omer, the counting of the Omer. However, the month of Nisan, although Nisan is a very special month, the Chodesh Sivan and the month of Sivan Shalachrav afterwards, that the Sfiras Omer is only in the beginning or the end of the month. Nisan only has Sfiras Omer the second part of the month, and Sivan only has the first week of the month. So he says, what is Teichana in the Sfiras Omer? What's so great about Sfiras Omer that we're going to attribute that's so great about the month of Iyar? B'avodas ha'adam in our service of man. He said, it's known, shekarban ha'omer sheba miyasa'orim meichel behema. The reason why the sacrifice of the Omer, again, the idea was like this, that on the 16th of the month of Nisan, they sacrificed the Omer sacrifice, and after the Omer sacrifice started the counting of the Omer, 49 days later was Chag Bikurim, which is when they brought the lechem, they celebrate the new wheat. But what is the Omer sacrifice? The Omer sacrifice is barley, which is called Meichel Behema, animal feed. We learned about this in our Hasidic shares of the Likutei Torah, and we will learn again in a few weeks. Is Roim is ala carbon nefesh bahamas. This is Hakravas nefesh bahamas. This is talking about indicating the closeness that the animal soul specifically gets to avoda. Means Sa'orim, because it's animal feed, And that's the korban, is this indication of a closeness and avoda that we're dealing with the nefesh habahamis, the animal soul. And after we bring the omer for the next 49 days, like I said, the spheres omer, we're counting from when we brought the omer sacrifice. It's our time to engage and analyze all the midos of the animal soul. Zayin midas, the 7 midas, kafisha b'kol echad kol mizayin midas, as each one is broken up into 7. So we have the chesed, gvura, tferes, netzach, hod, yisod, malchus. Each one is made up of them, as we've been studying in the Sfiras HaOmer. Each day has its own component within the midah, within the attribute. And when we analyze all 49, we're analyzing the full character, so to say, of our animal soul. Chesed b'chesed, for instance, the first night is kindness within kindness. The next night, the second night is gvura, discipline within kindness, chesed, etc. The whole avoda of Sfiras HaOmer is very orderly. The Rebbe is going to go into the Rebbe Marash, throwing in the idea of Lchatchila Ariber within a program of orderly, right? Because the whole idea of Sfiras HaOmer is an extremely orderly process of dealing and analyzing and fixing our animal soul. Tzad echad, tzad acher tzad. Each day we go through another stage within the character, breakup of the character of our animal soul. And after 49 days, we complete this work. That you should count a complete 7 weeks. Tiyana should be, which is 7 times 7 is the 49 days of the Omer. That when we refine and brighten, usfartem, the word sfartem means lashon behirus, to make something bright. We do it in a complete way. And how do we do it? In a very orderly way. If that's the case, the Rebbe Marash, he's born in the middle of Sfira, in the 2nd day of the month of Iyar, which every day of the month is part of this orderly process of analyzing our nefesh habahamis, our animal soul. Mahi hasvarish shahayladetai shad Marash bal hayrad Lchatchila Ariber he baschol shchedesh Iyar beis Iyar bezman shemudgesh avodas Sfiras HaOmer. How is it that his birthday specifically is in the beginning of the month? That's all about Sfiras HaOmer, all about taking a very orderly approach to our voda, our service of our nefesh habahamis, meaning to work on our nefesh habahamis. And he's the one who has this approach of Lchatchila Ariber, just jump forward, go out of order. So how does order and out of order go together? The counting of the Omer is all about, like we said before, an orderly process. Not to jump over and just leap out of the system. So this is going to be the Rebbe 101. So the Rebbe explains like this. In the mitzvah that says, Sfiras HaOmer, the pasuk, the verse says, that when should you start counting the Omer? After the Shabbos. For after you brought the Omer sacrifice, which means after the Chag of the Tezvav of the holiday and the Tezayin, you start counting. And Vehenif is Omer Shabbos. You lift it up. They had the lifting up process after the holiday. Sheva Shabbos is 7 complete weeks. The Torah doesn't tell us that the Omer sacrifice was on the 16th day. It says after Shabbos. Which means after not Shabbos, but after the first day of the holiday. This is why it gets complicated, because the Tzedokim, those who didn't believe in Torah Shebaal Peh, in the oral law, would only start counting on a Sunday because it says Shabbos. But the Torah means, the rabbis taught us that the Torah means Shabbos, that it means the holiday. So the Torah could have just said, start doing the Omer sacrifice on the 16th. So from this we see clearly that the idea of Sfiras HaOmer is the idea of after the first day of Pesach. What does this mean? What does this mean in our service of God? The very fact that the Rebbe is saying like this: if the Torah was saying that comes the 16th of the month of Nisan, when we bring the Korban Omer, which happens to be the day after the first day of Yom Tov, start this orderly process of analyzing your soul, analyzing your animal soul. So that would be okay. But the pasuk doesn't say that. The pasuk says after Shabbos. And what's Shabbos? Pesach. And what's Pesach? Jumping. So after you've initiated the avoda of Pesach, Pesach means to jump, right? God jumped over the houses. Then you start counting. This means when do you start getting into an orderly way of counting the Omer? Is as a continuation of the avoda of Pesach. What's in Yoni Shal Chag Pesach? Hukishmoi. The idea of Pesach is as its name indicates. Al Shem, because this was given the name Pesach based on Hadilag Vapsicha, because God jumped over the houses of the Jewish people. Therefore, the vote of Pesach is all about jumping over. Ariber. So the whole idea of Pesach is jumping over. What was the first jump? That God redeemed us. It was a jumping over the system. That God himself came to redeem us, although maybe possibly we weren't worthy of redemption. God didn't send an angel. God himself comes and redeems the Jewish people. As the Rebbe Rashab talks about, the son of the Rebbe Marash, the one who took over as Rebbe after the birthday boy, so to say, the Rebbe Marash. What does it mean God himself came? It means the highest level of God, of the essence of God, before any level of symptom of contraction. That level of open godliness, means totally out of the system of creation, comes and redeems the Jewish people. That's the idea of kfitza. That's the idea of jumping. After that happens, after God comes in a jumping manner, something totally out of the ordinary, comes and redeems the Jewish people, comes the avoda of going and starting to count every single day the Omer. The counting is Mimachras Shabbos. In a continuation after this jumping over energy that God's initiated with redeeming the Jewish people of Pesach. Mimachras Shabbos. Again, the Torah doesn't say on the 16th. It would have made life easier, a lot easier for the rabbis who had to deal with the tzeddokim, those who didn't believe and said, no, it's not, that's not what the pasuk means. So what the Torah is really telling you, that this idea of jumping has to be part of the energy and the underlining idea of counting of the Omer. More than that, as you count the Omer, this idea of Pesach, of jumping, gets even more stronger. We don't count the specific day. We don't say today's the first day, the second day. In Hebrew, we say Hayom Shnei Yomim. This is 2 days, 3 days. So it means we're not just counting the day itself, the new day, but now we're making it a group of one. One is a single. The second day is already a couple. 2 days. It doesn't say the second day, but 2 days. The third day is already a few, which is 3 days. So it's building on. It's more and more, not just not an orderly counting of each day separately. That you build on the day before. You don't move from the day before. You have a completion of yesterday, and with yesterday you have today. So now you have 2 days, and the third day you have yesterday, the day before, and the day today that you counted. And you keep on adding to that, and then you start saying that, and it's 1 week. So you make it into a team of a week and a day. Until you reach the 50th day, which is a total new level, the idea of the 50th. Which is much greater than the 49 days. We know we can't even count the 50th day. We can only count 49 days. So then the 50th day gets counted. That's another huge jump. As is explained in the works of Chassidus. The Rebbe says the idea is like this. So basically the Rebbe is proving that there's a concept of jumping in Sfiras Omer, although when you analyze the actual mitzvah of Sfiras Omer, it's supposed to be an orderly thing. So what the Rebbe is basically going to introduce is the idea of Lchatchila Ariber within order. With the idea, a lot of times people, when they want to get in out of order, in a way of, beyond any limitations, it's a different mindset. It's either I'm going to be orderly or I'm going to be inorderly. I'm going to be out of order. The Rebbe says no. That's not really jumping. It's not Lchatchila Ariber. You can't lose something to get something else. True jumping is within the order itself. You don't lose the order. You elevate the order. That the order itself, yes, you're counting every single day, and every day is built on the next day, and it's a continuation of the next day, and you're completing something, and then you're working on your nefesh bahamis, you're masaking it, you're fixing it, but you're not getting out of your space. You're taking the order and elevating what it means to make order. The idea is like this. What does it mean to jump on Pesach? It's not a one-time thing. On Pesach, the person gets into a mindset of jumping, of getting out of, what's the difference between jumping and walking? There's no pace. It's just you're jumping medalig alaharim, right? You're jumping from mountain to mountain. And then after that, Pesach is 1 day of jumping. Then after that you finish jumping, now you go back to order, which is what one would think is what was happening. You jumped on Pesach and then you start to count, which is very orderly. Ella, no, the Rebbe says no. The idea of jumping has to be consistent. Your consistency has to be jumping. You're a person that's always jumping. One elevation after the next elevation. And because of this, in this mindset, and in this attitude, you fulfill your job, your tafkid, and your mission, what Hashem wants from you. Your job is to be a jumper. That's how you're fulfilling your job, to make a dir b'tachtonim. And not just in general, but in all the details of your life. And in our case, that even the most orderly, and it requires order, to analyze every part of your character, and to not just be mevulval, not to be confused, not to be overwhelmed, but to be focused. Nevertheless, when a person analyzes the details of their attributes, that itself has to be perforated and done within a level of jumping and skipping. This was, by the way, I'm going to feel comfortable to say this, that this was the chiddush of the Rebbe. This is the chiddush of the Rebbe, what the Rebbe said in one of his final talks of Oiris the Toyu, B'Kayim the Tikkun. This idea that you take the lights of chaos in the vessels of fixing, that was a chiddush of the Rebbe. To say that Lchatchila Ariber means, to explain this idea, what the Rebbe is telling us now, this is a chiddush, it's a unique idea. And this was one of the ideas of the Rebbe. To take something that's the jumping, the out of space and bringing it into the limitations of space. This idea, that within the orderly of counting, it's in a way of jumping. We could find it in the Chabad Nusach. Not everyone in Ashkenazim, they say Sfir Somer, and it's unfortunate. I sometimes daven in Ashkenazi shul, and right after Sfir Somer, they say Aleinu. There's such a beautiful prayer that we say in Nusach Sfard and Nusach Chabad after the Sfir Somer about what we're accomplishing. And our Nusach we say, in our Tefillah we say, Rebbeinu Shalom. There's a part that we say the Rebbeinu Shalom, Master of the world. Shalom Melachas Sfir Somer that we say after the counting of the Omer. And what do we say? By counting tonight, Ve'etahir, I purify myself. Ve'eskadesh, I sanctify myself. Ve'kedusha shamayla, with a elevated level of sanctification. Umamshichim leprat beprati priyaser, and we go into the tefillah, into details of how through this specific day of counting the Omer, I've purified and elevated and sanctified myself. Ulesakin, and I fixed es nafsheseinu, my soul, my ruach, my spirit, v'nishmaseinu, and my neshama. Kol pratya dargas nefesh ruach neshama. We talk specifically about all the components within my soul that's being fixed and elevated through the counting of the Omer. L'taharenu v'kachenu, to bring purification and sanctification, b'ktushascha yaina, in the holy level of elevated sanctification. Leirak b'kedusha shel maila stam, not just a sanctification. El b'kedushascha, your sanctification. We're talking to God, that we're able to sanctify ourselves to the level of God's sanctification. Not just your sanctification, your elevated sanctification. Amen Selah. We finish off saying Amen Selah. Amen Selah means that it's consistent and everlasting. How could you have a greater jumping over? That we go from being mundane, human, limited, to say that we're able to sanctify ourselves in God's upper sanctification in a consistent way. There's no greater jumping than that. That someone here in this world, a human limited, is able to purify and sanctify oneself in the kedusha and the sanctification of Hashem, of God. And this is not just by chance that we have that the Rebbe Marash, Lchatchila Ariber, who lived this attitude and taught this attitude, that bringing Lchatchila Ariber, bringing the approach of constantly jumping and moving within order itself, is what's required in order for us to actually reach the holiday, the destination, which is the holiday of Shavuos, of receiving the Torah. When a person jumps in their whole being, because that's what we're doing on Tzviras Omer, we're analyzing our entire character, we're not getting out of character. Our entire character is being elevated and jumping to a whole new reality. Kol prati zay midas, all the details of the 7 attributes. 7 times 7 is 49. Each one made up of 7. The entire liskadish, that we're totally, each component on its own. You have sometimes, when you put it all the pieces together, there's a sanctification and a purification. But halachically, there's the law is that something that's made up of parts, you want to dip it in the mikvah. It's not so simple. You have to figure out if it could be dipped separately or does it have to be dipped together. Depending how connected they are. Based on the connection of the parts, do you have to first take it apart and dip each piece separately into the mikvah if you have to purify, talking about a vessel, or can it be dipped as a single entity? So here we're talking about that each piece of our character, separate, so to say, almost from the next character, because we're analyzing it separately and building on the day before, gets purified on its own. So it's mamish, a deep purification that we achieve in the Omer process. So then we come the Tara, the Kaddish, we become purified and sanctified. With the sanctification of God, Nasemuchen, then we become ready, Viroi and able, the Kabbalah Torah Michadash, to receive the Torah again from new. What do you mean from new? Because we received it last year. But now this year comes through us, we're not celebrating something that happened. We're celebrating something that's happening. And what's happening is that there's that we have a sanctification now. And therefore we're able to receive the Torah now, again. What does it mean to receive the Torah? Is to become a oneness between the Jewish people and the Kadosh Baruch Hu. An elevation there's nothing close to that. And the Rebbe continues, Void Vikar, and something more important. That also we know that there's going to be, although there's not going to be another giving of the Torah is one time, but there are going to be new elements within Torah that's going to happen with the coming of Mashiach. And by doing Sfiras Omer now, we're getting ourselves ready for that new elevation that we're going to have with the coming of Mashiach. Like it says, the Pasuk says, he quotes from Yeshaya Navi, the Rebbe, Torah Chadash Meiti Teitze. There's going to be a new addition within Torah that's going to come out in the times of Mashiach. Me'iti Daika, from the essence of God. Everyone's going to know the essence of God. We're going to mamish see how the Torah, or the Hashem and the Jewish people are absolutely one. Because the jumping that we have within Sfiras Omer, with that we are able to, that like we said before, that we take the idea of Pesach and introduce it into the counting, that the counting itself has to be in a way of jumping, the idea of Lchatchila Ariber, of jumping in every single situation, higher and higher within the order itself. This also helps us. We're in a jumping mode. We jump from exile into redemption. One of the psukim, one of the verses that we have that supports the idea of jumping is Medalig Alaharim, jumping on the mountains. It's talking about when Mashiach comes. Like we say, how do we know that the Sfiras Omer is connected to the Messianic time? Because we say right afterwards, Harachman, may the merciful Yachzir Lana Vedis Beis Hamikdash. We're asking Hashem to please restore the temple and its service speedily in our time. So right away after we count the Omer, we're including the concept that this idea is that we should be able to celebrate with the coming of Mashiach immediately and count the Omer with Mashiach in the temple. The Rebbe says, "Apiza yesh levar gam hakesh v'shayches leledus shel adam arash bal hayrod Lchatchila Ariber laschos chodesh Iyar beis Iyar chodesh Sfiras Omer." And therefore, like we said before, because the month of Iyar is the month that every single day in the month is part of the mitzvah of counting the Omer. Unlike Nisan, that's only the end of the month. It was Sivan, that's the beginning of the month. But the month of Iyar, every day has the mitzvah of Sfiras Omer. And like we said, that the Rebbe Marash, who his message, his motto was, Lchatchila Ariber was born in the beginning of the month of Iyar. So the Rebbe says like this, Etzem ha'uvda, this idea, She'etzel b'nei Yisrael yesh gam oifen, hanhagad Ariber, that we are able to have this attitude of jumping over, always going over. B'zmanim matzavim yuchadim, ein b'hem chidush kol kach. This idea that a Jewish person has sometimes the ability to jump over in situations, that's not such a chiddush. Ikra chiddush hu b'rad Lchatchila Ariber. The Rebbe says again, what is the chiddush that the Rebbe Marash came to teach us? That always jump over. Your initial approach to it, Lchatchila, how do you view every single situation is as an opportunity to jump over. The idea that that Jewish people jump over, we've had that, the Rebbe Marash introduced that concept. The dagash, the emphasis on what he's teaching is the Lchatchila. Your initial approach has to be jumping over. That a person doesn't just jump over in unique or special times. Only after you've accomplished or mastered the orderly, so you're going to go to going beyond order. Your initial approach to every situation is, from the beginning, is jumping over. And that continues. It's like a person who, when you jump with the momentum. So when you're jumping with momentum, it's easier to keep on jumping than if you just had to jump one time. So every part of your vote is in a way of jumping. Even the things that require seemingly order, or that order itself has to be in a way of Lchatchila Ariber, of unorder. Nasim ba'ofen dariber, in a way of jumping over. Like we said, Shabbos. After Shabbos, meaning after Pesach, the first day of Pesach, which is Shabbos, in this pasuk is Visvartimchem, you start counting. Starting from the first day we became a nation. Right? When did Pesach happen? The Jewish people became a nation then. Until then, we were the descendants of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. But when did we become a nation? It was the Pesach. So the night of Pesach, the day of Pesach, was the 15th, and the 16th. Right away, we start jumping. We take the jumping and bring it into our order, accounting of the Omer. And we take this attitude into even the orderly of counting the Omer. And that's why the one who introduced this concept of Lchatchila Ariber, that every single approach in every single situation is always jumping over, and to bring that even into a situation of order is emphasized with the fact that the Rebbe Marash's birthday was in the beginning of the month of Iyar, Lamdeinu, to teach us this attitude, this approach. Again, it's not like there's different approaches. It's a totally different approach. There's no comparable between this. There's no comparison between the two. And therefore, it comes to teach us that the Hanhaga, this idea of Ariber, of going over, has to also, where do you see it? If you want to know if you've accomplished the idea of Kfitza, of jumping, the idea of Pesach, the idea of Ariber, you have to see, how did it affect the things of order in your life? So he says, things that are in order, for instance, the counting of the Omer, Sfiras Omer. Not just on the Shabbos, but the weekdays, not just the day that you take off. And after the month of Nisan, which is the month of miracles, you go into the month of Iyar, which is seemingly a mundane month, a regular month, doesn't have much going on. There's, of course, Pesach Sheni, Lag Bomer, but it's not like there's super holidays like Pesach or Sukkot. And after you already finished the year, comes Beis, the day after Rosh Chodesh. Kiva and Shaschal, Lchatchila Ariber has to be right away. As soon as we start seemingly the mundane month, so to say, the grind of the month of year, right away then comes the Rebbe Marash and says, Lchatchila Ariber. You're going to start counting now. You finished Pesach, you put away all your Pesach things, the kids went home, Yeshiva started. The mundane starts again, Lchatchila Ariber. This order has to be done in a totally out-of-box way. The Rebbe continues, to add to this. Right? Like we said before, it's not one-time thing. You have to constantly be jumping over. It has to penetrate and permeate all our elements of avodah of service. So it's understood that from time to time, that there has to be like these more bigger jumps. That sometimes that even in the jumping order, you have to make sure the concern that I was saying is sometimes a person gets into the routine of Lchatchila Ariber. It becomes you pace yourself and you're jumping, right? Like I said before, a person can start jumping from mountain to mountain. It's like you're jumping off the same energy, that same bounce. So that bounce itself has to be added to a higher level of bounce. You can't just get into a routine of the bouncing itself. From time to time, you have to add to the jumping over. You can't even get into a routine of jumping, right? Sometimes, a lot of times, people in their life get into a certain routine of beyond, right? You get up early. You're doing things, so all of a sudden it turns out. So yes, compared to a month ago, a year ago, 10 years ago in your life, this is wow. But your wow became the norm within yourself. So you have to wow the wow. That's Lchatchila Ariber within Lchatchila Ariber. The God means okay. This doesn't mean to start going crazy in exhausting yourself. But this could be very small resolutions, small commitments that are wow moments that are Lchatchila Ariber. It says, we're also going to find this in the birthday, the idea that the Lchatchila Ariber itself has to have the Lchatchila Ariber. In the beginning of the month of year, the month of the counting of the Omer. That although that we coming from Pesach, Machras Shabbos, and we had jumping in our counting of the Omer. After the month of Pesach, in the beginning of the counting of the Omer. We're already 2 weeks into the Omer by the time Beis comes around. We're already getting into a routine, 2 weeks. We're doubling it. We're getting into a good routine, a good groove of jumping within the Sfiras Omer. We've already started the third week. The third day of the third week, because the Mittel Rebbe is born in Tiferes, which is the third counting of the third week. A jumping on the jumping. And this is also, which the Rebbe always talked about, that what is the actual attribute of the Rebbe Mirash's birthday is Tiferes, which is beauty, harmony, compassion within Tiferes. We know that who is of the three fathers? We have Avram is Chesed, Yitzchak is Gvura. And what is the attribute of our father Yaakov? Is the midah of Tiferes. Hanikra, and it's brought down that what is the midah of Yaakov? This is a reference to a part of the Mishkan, a kind of beam or wood bar of the Mishkan that was Mavriach Hatichon Minakatza Lakatza that connected everything together. So it connects, it's Mavriach Hatichon from one extreme to the next extreme. Miroim HaMayil from the highest level, Umedargas Atzef Kol Dagan to the lowest level. And because the avodah of Yaakov is Mavriach Hatichon, he combines everything. Again, Tiferes is the combination to combine Chesed and Gevura. It has the power to combine, bring things together. And You're able to do Lchatchila Ariber in this combination. Again, right away, your first approach to everything is jumping over. And also that the jumping over itself is only the beginning. That's only the beginning of what you're doing. But there's much more greater things you're doing after that. Lchatchila, it's only the beginning. Because you keep on adding to that Ariber. I mean, what the Rebbe is saying here is, this is the idea in a nutshell, which is a beautiful idea. Someone would say that Lchatchila Ariber is such an avoda of jumping over and getting out, that's the goal. The Rebbe says, no, that's only the Lchatchila, that's only the beginning of what you're accomplishing. You're only a beginning accomplishing into achieving jumping at springing within system. That's only the beginning. From there itself, you keep on springing and keep on springing. The goal itself is the accomplishment, not the routine. Until there's no limit. From the highest levels to the lowest levels and back. Okay, we're going to stop here, ladies and gentlemen. The Rebbe continues this Farbrengen with connecting this idea to the Pirkei Avos, the second paragraph of the week. Everyone can continue learning this beautiful Farbrengen on their own. I want to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom, a good Shabbos, and a good Chodesh. We're still with speak with Chodesh and a Beizir, Tfresh B'Tferes. The Rebbe's insights should keep us and guide us with all the Torahs that we need and strength we need for this week. Laila Tov and good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos. Thank you, Rebbe.